This is John Zaninovich. Welcome to Move My Mass. You'll be hearing from great guests talk about balancing life and being fit. Hey, thanks for allowing me to come by your place today and have a little chit chat.
Yep.
First time I've taken the show on the road.
We'll see if it works.
I think I kind of like all this. This is going to work.
Yeah, this is good.
But yeah, this is, I think this is your third or fourth time on.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we haven't covered the subject before, but the reason I wanted to have you on this episode is to talk about Afib.
Yep.
I know you've been dealing with it. You've had numerous episodes.
Yep.
But yeah, it's an issue that I think a lot of people can learn from, especially from an endurance athlete, somebody that's pushing their body all the time,
right?
And how you deal with it. So let's start. When did it first happen? When was your first? What are they called? Episodes or?
Yeah. So you're not in atrial fibrillation all the time. It's something that happens. But I was first diagnosed with atrial fibrillation in my mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
It was I was sitting on the couch one night, Stacey and I were watching TV, and I might have been having a Pepsi or something, and all of a sudden my heart just flip-flopped, skipped a few beats, and then never went back to a normal beat. And a lot of people say it feels like a runaway train, or your chest is pounding, and we just did not know what was going on. So I went to the hospital that night. Spent some time there. They diagnosed me with atrial fibrillation, put me on a beta blocker, slowed the heart down. And over a few days of taking some medication, it converted on its own. So that was the first time it happened, but that was in my mid to late 20s. And so I've been dealing with it for over 20 years now.
Yeah. And is it always the same for everybody that has it? Is it a rapid heart rate, or is it just a regular heartbeat?
Yeah, irregular or arrhythmias, or some people call it palpitations. There's a lot of it probably feels different to everybody.
Okay.
But I will have a lot of, while we're sitting here recording today, I will have palpitations and things that go on, but it won't go out of rhythm in a permanent basis. So what happens is that happens all the time, and that's electrical. There's an electrical issue with my heart and with a lot of people's, and that'll cause it to miss beats. Mm-hmm. So what you have is you have the atrial top portion of the heart, and then you've got the lower chambers, and the top squeezes, and then it pushes blood out through the lower chambers. What happens with atrial fibrillation is your upper atrial section quivers. It just quivers. It doesn't give a solid beat.
Okay.
So it never really pushes the blood flow that you need, and it feels like you're racing at 100. Your heart rate's really high. Mm-hmm. And in fact, if you take your heart rate while you're having an episode, you'll be running 120 plus just sitting here.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that first episode, now looking back, do you remember anything leading up to it? Like, okay, now that I've gone through it and I think back, there were times I felt things.
Yeah, absolutely. You learn what your triggers are. Right. So everybody has a different trigger. Mine was caffeine early in my life. I was real susceptible to caffeine hyping me up and causing my heart to have problems. The funny thing is, we were in college just a few years before that, and we would go out to a coffee shop and have coffee and study till 10 or 11 o'clock at night and go back and go straight to bed and not have a problem.
Yeah.
Today, I can't have caffeine at all. So your body changes as you get older. But that was one of my early triggers, was caffeine. So today, or the last 25 years, I've had no caffeine, not a Pepsi, not iced tea, not anything.
Yeah.
But my other triggers, as I've figured them out, are dehydration. Dehydration is a huge one for me. As soon as I get dehydrated, my heart starts to skip beats.
Okay.
The other one is fatigue. So fatigue and dehydration, really perfect things for endurance athletes, right?
Right. No kidding.
And what we're doing is carrying fatigue every day, and we're dehydrated because we're usually doing long workouts. So those are really major issues for me that I have to pay attention to. And there's a lot of Afib within the endurance athlete community, because they dehydrate themselves and they get so tired. So I've talked to other people, it is a common occurrence with other Afib people that have that problem.
Yeah. And so let's get into, well, I don't remember it so much in your younger years, but I do remember because it was such a big event. We had signed up for our first Ironman race.
Yeah.
And you came to me and said, I can't compete because I can't get this under control.
Yeah.
What's really changed from then till now? Because you had some episodes where you're like, okay, it won't stop.
Right.
And
right.
have you been, what do they call it?
Manually converted, shocked. Yeah.
They've done that, right?
Yeah. I've done it twice now.
Yeah.
And
so what's the difference having to do that? So it permanently fit. Well, it's not that they got rid of it, but it's kept it from going back into it. Right.
All it is that event. That event might last 30 seconds, 5 seconds, 30 seconds, or 30 days.
Okay.
And so when I was, again, younger, 20s and 30s, I would have an event. I would go into atrial fib, just meaning it was regularly unregular. It was not a normal heartbeat for a long, extended period of time.
Gotcha.
And so I would go on medication. I actually had some medication at home. I would go on that immediately. And then within usually 7 days, it would convert back to a normal heart rate on its own. When I got to my late 30s and 40s, it would no longer convert on its own. And so we were signed up for Ironman Arizona. And we had been doing, 8 months of training. We were in great shape. We were 30 days out, and I went into atrial fib. I had an episode that would not convert, and it went on. The longer it went on, I finally had to be converted manually. And so that is you sign up, you schedule an appointment, your cardiologist takes you to the hospital. They do it in the hospital. They put you half under, just kind of daze you. And then they hit you literally with the paddles, and they convert you back to a normal heart rate that way.
Yeah. And you've had that done twice.
I've had that done twice.
And how far apart were those?
They were about 3 or 4 years apart.
Okay.
Yeah.
And since you
nothing in the last 8 years.
Right. And
now, no long atrial fib type. I have daily occurrences of arrhythmias and flip-flopping hearts and things like that, but it always goes right back. So I'll hold my breath almost because you'll feel it happen a couple of times. You're like, okay, is it going back? And then it'll go right back to a normal rhythm. So that's what's been happening for the last 7 or 8 years.
Right.
But those arrhythmias are happening more and more often all the time. But I also recognize them better now. And when they're happening, I'm like, why is this happening? I'm dehydrated or I'm tired. And so I'll just take a day off of training and get myself a little more well rested. And that seems to, maybe I'm heading off those full blown episodes.
Gotcha. And so you head them off, or you feel like you're heading them off, and obviously you are because you haven't had any long episodes. But do you notice anything like, okay, so you got to avoid fatigue, dehydration, caffeine, but the intensity of a workout, does that matter?
No, the intensity of a workout, how hard you go, it never triggers an episode for me, and it doesn't do anything other than your body might be a little more tired the next day, and you might need an extra day of work, recovery, so you're not so tired if that's one of your triggers. But we've talked on the last podcast I think I was on. I was doing 52 or
75
hard. Yeah. 75 hard. And I was about 21 days in, and I was 2 workouts a day. And one of my workouts was, we did a Tough Mudder in the morning, and then I had to do another workout in the afternoon. And I kept that up for about 3 or 4 days past that. And I got so tired, I started having some heart problems.
Yeah.
And so I said, you know what, this is not worth it. And so I took myself off 75 hard, took a day of rest, or two days of rest. And my heart calmed down.
Yeah.
So, So,
and that was definitely more fatigue than anything.
It was just fatigue
right?
that it was doing at that time. I was well hydrated. Minerals, electrolytes, that really bothers me. I could be drinking all the water I want, but electrolytes are an issue for me. So if I'm not getting in enough electrolytes, enough sodium, for example, which is a problem that most endurance athletes have. Yeah. If you're not taking enough sodium in, I take over 1,000 milligrams a day, a supplement. Mm-hmm. So that really helps me.
Right. And I think it's just so important for, there's got to be a lot of endurance for athletes in general out there, just maybe starting to deal with it. Don't know.
Yeah.
Because it would be, got to understand, it's got to be scary thinking, man, do I never get to do this again?
Yeah. Yeah.
I like to ride. I like to swim. I like to, whatever you want to do, man, do it. And
I think
that's
that's
just a great story to hear that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's really important when you have these things happen, get yourself diagnosed. You're immediately going to go to the hospital the first time it happens. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm dying.
Right.
And so I did that the first couple times. I went to the hospital. Second time, I was like, I think this is atrial fib, but I don't know. And they checked me out. They said, okay, yeah, you're an AFib, but everything else seems to be normal. Now, when it happens, I don't even bother going to I just set an appointment for the next day to go see my general doctor. You can't get into a cardiologist. That takes 6 months to get into a cardiologist. I just go see my normal doctor now. But I think the lesson is for athletes out there. And again, I'm not a doctor. I just play one on TV. Right. So I'm not a doctor. So I probably say a lot of things here that are wrong. But it's not a death sentence for you. There's plenty of endurance athletes that are doing this every day, and they have these issues. They're susceptible to AFib. You don't want to train while you're in AFib. And I've done that. I've been in AFib and tried to train, because you can get in a situation, you get it controlled with beta blockers and other heart medication. It'll get your rate down. So I got down to one time where I was an extended period of time where I was in AFib, but they got my heart rate controlled down to where I was, 75 or 80 sitting here. So I'd get on the spin bike and I'd try, and I didn't want to black out on the road. So I'd get on a spin bike and I'd try. It's dumb, but I've done that kind of stuff. But what I did was I got out of here, I got out of the valley, I got out of my local area, and I went and found a doctor. And there was a doctor in Southern California, actually at Scripps in San Diego. And his moniker, he was Dr. Marathon. He was a cardiologist. He was someone who had AFib in his life. And I went down and saw him, and he says, no, that's what I specialize in. All my athletes who have AFib, come see me. I have anyone who has a heart problem. He had people that had heart transplants, or they had all kinds of different issues, but he helped them all become or stay active as athletes. So don't take the first thing your doctor says as, my first cardiologist says, well, just stop doing what you're doing. You're way too active. Don't do that anymore. And that's what they all want to say, right? So I just didn't take that advice. I went and found the right doctor, and he says, no, you're perfectly healthy. We put me on a treadmill, did a full test. He says, no, you're great. I haven't had many people that could do as much as you. He said, keep on doing what you're doing, but next time you have an episode, we'll treat it this way. If we have to, we'll put a, what do they call the things that zap you, a defibrillator or something like that you have on you. He said, we'll do one of those. He said, I've got athletes that have those. He says, there's all kinds of ways around this. So I guess the lesson there is it's not a death sentence for endurance athletes, but just go find the right doctor, because there is one that will help you through it. That's
so true with a lot of things.
Yeah.
And speaking of heart rate, you're talking about heart rate. What was your heart rate during some of these episodes? Just sitting.
Yeah, just sitting, 120, 130, 140, just sitting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
just sitting here.
It's like you're out on a good ride.
Yeah, my resting heart rate, today, my resting heart rate would be 45. So if I'm 45 now and I'm at 140 sitting during an episode, you're working out just sitting here.
Yeah, and that would go on for how long for you?
30 days.
Where it's just at 140, 125, 140.
The whole time.
Sleeping?
Yeah, sleeping the whole time. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard to wrap my head around it. And I remember you talking to you when you were back going through those episodes. I'm like, how does that?
Yeah.
Because that's obvious. Then that's obvious. You're like, all right, I'm an AFib.
But it's different. It's not like you're breaking a sweat. You're not sweating. You're not feeling active. Your heart's just going crazy. And it's not so much that you're working out. It's just, again, it's quivering. So you get no true beats. And so it says it's 140. It's not like when you're working hard and it's 140. It's almost impossible to take your heart rate at that time, because it's just quivering and not really getting any blood pumping through for you. Gotcha. So you get winded pretty easily. The main problem with AFib is a stroke. So what happens is when that atrial, when that upper chamber of the heart is quivering, it's not pumping and pushing all the blood through. So the blood pools in your upper chamber, and then it clots. And then when it gets pushed through, you clot, goes to your brain, and you have a stroke.
Yeah.
That's the main worry with atrial fib. So most people that have regular occurrences are on a blood thinner.
Yeah.
So they just, even there was years that I took blood thinners even when I wasn't having any atrial fib symptoms.
Yeah.
Today I do not take anything and probably should take a blood thinner, but I don't take one at all.
Yeah. Do you feel palpitations when you're working out? Say you're on a good ride and maybe your heart rate's 130, 140. Does that seem to smooth it out? Like, okay, now it's working, or do you still feel it?
No, I won't feel it during that time.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's the lead up to it. So maybe when I first get on a bike or I just get into a workout and I'm just doing something, I'll feel it skip. But then usually once you get your pulse up and you're going, I don't have any problem after that.
So it seems like, hey, we're both here playing doctor. It seems like working out is a good thing for it.
Sure.
I mean,
yeah,
you're
say
keeping
that.
it regular.
Yeah. Anecdotally. Yeah.
Right. Or certainly, because it's, when you talk to anybody with any kind of a medical issue and you don't have that medical issue, you're like, hey, well, what's it really feel like?
Sure.
What's it really like?
There's many people who are in AFib a lot of the time and they just don't know it. And these are mainly people that are maybe potentially overweight or having other issues, and they just don't realize that their heart is failing or doing something different. And they say, I just am winded. I don't have any energy. And they get to the doctor and they find out, hey, you're in AFib all the time here. Your heart's not beating properly. Yeah. And I know a lot of people that have had that problem.
Right.
So, but as athletes, most of the people listening to the podcast or like us, we know pretty much immediately when something goes with our heart.
Mm-hmm. So. Well, I don't have AFib, but I do have my heart rate will get too low.
Yeah.
And better shape I get in, obviously, the lower it gets.
Yeah.
And so, and I'm approaching that level right now. I've noticed, my rides still aren't long, 2.5, 3 hours.
Yeah.
But it's a long ride for a lot of people. Yeah. My runs are getting longer, right? And I'm noticing now, I'm back to that spot where if I'm resting, like right now we're kicking back talking, but this is keeping me active enough where it's not going to happen. But if I just really chill out, if I'm just sitting there watching TV, get super relaxed, I'm like, oh, I'm thirsty, I'm going to go get a glass of water. And I stand up.
You black out.
I got to give my body time. Hey,
Yeah, you got to let it know. I'm getting up now.
Yeah, because the heart rate won't jump up fast enough to support the activity, even though just walking to the refrigerator to get some water.
And that's real common. I mean, I think for distance athletes. And it happened to me last night. I got up from the chair and I was like, whoa, and almost went down. I have, Mason, my son, caught me one time. I went down one time. I blacked out. And it was just, it had nothing to do with AFib. It's just our heart rates get so low. You get up quickly to go do something and I went down. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes I think about that. I'm like, well, the doctor told me, it's like, when you're older, you're going to have a pacemaker.
Yeah.
Just,
that's the word I was looking for, pacemaker. Yeah.
And is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's so, all right. What is your training like right now?
Yeah, so I'm training a lot right now. I've been riding 3 to 4 days a week and lifting three. I'm lifting 3 and riding 3 is my general workout.
Yeah.
But, nothing crazy. 2 hours is the longest ride. And but that's enough to, again, bring some fatigue. That's 7 or 8 hours a week. So that's general fatigue right there. You're carrying it all the time. So
speaking of 7 to 8 hours a week, is there a number where maybe it's not specific workouts during the week or how hard they are, but do you have an hour total per week where you're like, okay, this is where my body really starts to start?
I'd love to say I'm not that scientific, but I'm not. It's all intuition and feel, and I know what I'm getting there. And I'm like, I probably should take a day off, and it doesn't happen often right now, but it's just important to listen to your body, and when you're there, you're there.
Right.
But you have to prioritize sleep now. I make sure I get my sleep in. I'm an 8-hour guy every single night, just night in, night out. And if I'm not, I know what's coming.
You start to, and how many nights of missing that before you notice?
1, I can get by, but two nights in a row of not getting a full 8 hours sleep. If I only get 6 or I only get 7, then after 2 nights, I'm gonna have to alter something to get back on. on that pattern, because I'm not gonna be able to perform correctly. My heart's there's gonna be something going on.
And what do you normally notice first? Performance, or does your heart start to tell you?
My heart actually tells me. Yeah, it'll tell me. So yeah.
It's immediate.
And as I get older now, too, the stress. I mean, we all run big businesses, and the stress. I feel my stress in my heart now, and that's weird. But it's obviously a weakness in my body, and so I feel my stress in my body, and I have a lot of palpitations and things, and it's purely around the stress of the day.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling that. So I'm trying to differentiate. Am I working out too hard? Am I just stressed? And every trainer you've ever had will tell you your body knows no difference between stress and working out. So if you had a terrible day, customers beating you up, you're fighting with employees or whatever it is, that's a workout and you don't realize it. And you want to medicate it by, I'm going to forget about this and go for a 2-hour run, or I'm going to go get a hard run it. That's really twice as hard on your body that day. And so you've got to listen to it.
Yes, you definitely have to figure out how to regulate the stress.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Because we experience it physically in our body.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know what, man, thanks. That is a lot to share, and it's a lot to be going through. But yeah, I don't know why I didn't think about, we've talked about so many other things on this podcast.
Yeah.
I need to go chat with him about this Afib, because there's so many people out there that can, I think, benefit from it.
Yeah.
Learn how to deal with it. Maybe not be so scared. Maybe they're just starting to deal with it and they're scared out of their minds. I can see that. And yeah, it's definitely not something to take lightly, but it is certainly nice to talk to somebody that's going through it.
But you can live with it. I think that's my message, is you can totally live with this. You can continue to train with it. Just get it figured out, get to the right doctor. And if your doctor says, well, just don't do that anymore, well, keep looking. There's other doctors, and there's the right doctor. There's a sports doctor. There's sports cardiologists. There's cardiologists that understand what's going on. I just have a dysfunctional electric system in my body. My mother's that way. My grandfather was that way. We all have electrical problems. That's all it is. It's an electrical problem. It's not a heart issue. It's an electrical problem. That's all Afib is, electric. So,
silly question. I think I know the answer, but are there degrees of it? Are there more severe degree?
I'm sure there are. Yep, I'm sure there are.
Because it's not like it's just cookie cutter. Like if you got Afib, this is how it is. And
yeah, no, there's a lot of people that go in will have ablations where they actually burn off some of the pathways to try and get it to stop. And that is actually successful for some people.
Yeah.
And I've never felt I needed to go that far. Again, I think the secret to my body is just to continue training. I continue to work out and I continue to keep myself in good health. So then my Afib's not ever getting worse.
Yeah.
So
my mom has it, and she got the ablation, and it worked.
Yeah.
And but before she got that done, she just described, she said, I'm just tired all the time.
Yep.
It's like, it's wearing me out having this.
Yeah.
And hers wasn't really a high heart rate. It was just constantly irregular heartbeat.
Yeah. Arrhythmias and constantly just not efficient. Your heart's not pumping efficiently.
Right.
So you never get the blood flow.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing all that. And now let's just keep working out.
Yeah. Hopefully it helps someone.
All right. Thank you.
All right.